I really wanted to get a 30-minute routine down. That was like my sweet spot because I knew I could do it most days. But I knew I wanted to have certain things in it, like kind of like my to-do list for the day, gratitude practice, stuff that you hear about that I really believe in. So I kind of knew what I wanted it to contain. And then it was a matter of just figuring out how am I going to get it into 30 minutes. That's why the meditation and the exercise are only 5 minutes. Realistically, I'm doing more exercise in 5 minutes to start the day. I try to
Right.
get 7,000 steps and I do martial arts and things like that. So, but at least in the beginning parts of my morning, my day, I'm getting the blood flowing and stuff.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations, folks. It's Audley Stevenson back for another edition of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. This is the Audacious Living Podcast, and I appreciate you for being here as we continue our ongoing goal of helping our listeners live their best audacious lives ever. This is episode 151. This is probably the last one before we enter into 2023. So certainly looking forward to a new year. 2022 was a great one. 2023 will be even better. As always, I encourage you to follow us on our social media channels, or you can subscribe to us on YouTube. And if you're watching this episode on YouTube, then you know that all you've got to do is tap that notification bell down below, and you'll instantly be connected to all good things Audacious related. Now, on this episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about the importance of starting off our day the right way. And for many, this is achieved by having a morning routine in place that you follow on a daily basis. Now, when you think about it, we wake up at the first thing in the morning. There's a flood of thoughts, things to do, plans for the day, and a whole host of other things that can consume our thoughts. You know, having something to do that we don't have to commit any major brain power to is a very good thing and a great way to ease into the day because we know there's lots coming our way. Ryan Cote understands this very, very well. He's the owner of the Morning Upgrade. It's a business dedicated to increasing awareness of personal development through both his blog and podcast. And again, they're all about morning routines and the importance of kicking off the day on the right note. It was great to have Ryan on the podcast. Again, we talk about morning routines, their significance in our lives, what prevents people from setting up their own routine, and also the importance of finding the right one that works for you. It's definitely not a one size fit all, and there's a real key in understanding what works for you. So without any further ado, here is my chat with Ryan Cote. Enjoy. Hey, Ryan, thank you for joining me. Living podcast. It's awesome to have you spend some time here. Thank you for making the time for yourself. This is awesome.
Yeah, Audley, I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk to you. Love your energy. So let's do it.
Awesome. This is good. You know, on this podcast, we spend a lot of time, encouraging people to demonstrate boldness and be audacious in their actions and, live their truth and be the person we're supposed to be and all these great things. And very fits nicely with the work that you do. Certainly the personal development work we'll talk about, but you have a particular focus on morning routines, and we all know that the morning, that starts your day. Obviously, we get up, we start the day with the morning, and the way you start can help springboard you to all kinds of great stuff, and really potentially frame how the rest of the day works. So maybe sort of as a starting point, to get you to sort of discuss and describe kind of your work you do around the significance of getting people to understand morning routines.
Yeah, so morning routines is my self-care pillar habit. And so I started doing one in 2017, was going through some issues in my marketing agency and just tried to double down on the business, but also on myself as well. So I started going down that rabbit hole, started with Miracle Morning. Since then, I've crafted my own routine 3 or 4 or 5 different times. And now I've settled in on a 30-minute routine that I follow every single morning. So yeah, like I said, it's my self-care pillar habit. I want to wake up, start my day the same way every morning. I, I can tell you what my routine is if that's helpful, but I follow it every morning, 9 out of 10 days, not every single day, but 9 out of 10 days I'm doing it. And it
I
just,
gotta
yeah, sets the
ask.
stage.
I gotta ask that. I mean, you got me. I'm intrigued.
All right. So first thing I do for exercise, I'll do 1,000 push-ups and then I'll run 10 miles. No, I'm joking. No, I wish I
Listen, you had me, man. I was like, wow.
like I'm like Herschel Walker or something. No. All right. So what I do is I set my priority for the day or priorities, personal and professionally. I write down what I'm grateful for. I write down what my biggest win was from yesterday. Okay. I'm writing this down pen to paper. I write down who I'm going to reach out to today, recognize, encourage, say hello. Sometimes it's my mom. Sometimes it's an employee. It depends. And then I journal for a few minutes. What I'm journaling right now mostly is my intentions, how I want to show up across love, energy, and work every day.
Yep.
And it's the same stuff every day. It's the same intentions every day as of right now. Then I journal on my number one affirmation, write it down. Then I meditate for 5 minutes. I exercise for only 5 minutes, pull-ups, push-ups, things like that, shadow boxing. And then I read a couple of pages. Right now I'm reading this book, 177 Mental Toughness Secrets. Every page.
Steve
Yeah.
Siebel, I know him.
Oh, do you really? It's a good book. Every page is like one tip. So it's like very conveniently folds into my morning routine.
Steve is a mental toughness master. He's been doing that for a long time.
Yes, that's my routine. It's about 25, 30 minutes.
Amazing. So how did you sort of land on it? Was it a trial and error sort of thing, or what made you sort of pick out aspects, like for example, to focus on your wins or to demonstrate gratitude? How did you get to those pieces?
I think it's what you said. It's really just experiencing and putting in the reps. At this point, I've been doing this routine for about a year. Okay. So I've been doing routines for like 4 years, trying Miracle Morning, reading about different things, trying new things. And so like, I really wanted to get a 30-minute routine down. That was like my sweet spot because I knew I could do it most days. But I knew I wanted to have certain things in it, like kind of like my to-do list for the day, gratitude practice, stuff that you hear about that I really believe in. So I kind of knew what I wanted it to contain. And then it was a matter of just figuring out how am I going to get it into 30 minutes. That's why the meditation and the exercise are only 5 minutes. Realistically, I'm doing more exercise in 5 minutes throughout the day. I try to get 7,000 steps and I do martial arts and things like that. So, but at least in the beginning parts of my morning, my day, I'm getting the blood flowing and stuff.
So then tell me, Ryan, how does it, what proof do you have or what evidence that shows you that these things are working or that you're incorporating? Is there something you can actually tangibly see, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, like, because you're right. It is a very intangible thing. It's really how you feel about yourself. I seem to get luckier when I'm doing my morning routine. Honestly, like the morning routine sent me down the whole personal development path of then starting morning routine and having the podcast and doing the book and just keep on stacking and stacking. Right. And so it's really a big part of it is how I feel about myself, and my identity, like how I view myself. I know that's not like a really tangible answer, like X% growth. And, but yeah, I'm just doing more. I do more now. I have more businesses. I push myself out of my comfort zone more. I join masterminds. I join Krav Maga. Just like, it's been a whole journey, and it all started with the morning routine.
Well, and much can be said about that feeling piece. You're right. It's not tangible. No one can see it. But if it can push you to do more, to become more, or more productive, feel better about yourself, then that counts, right? And something that we shouldn't lose sight of or minimize. So there's much to be said about that, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, definitely.
I guess I kind of want to go back then, Steve, Ryan. I said Steve, Ryan, I want to kind of go back there. I'm thinking of Steve Siebold, I guess. I'm not quite sure. But I want to go back to what got you started. What made you identify that as this is something I need to be intentional about? Because really what makes this work is the intentionality piece, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to. I mean, I think the fuel for starting a morning routine is, first of all, you have to be bought in on like that investing in yourself is important, and that starting your day off on your terms is important. And for me, the moment, or that moment was back in like 2017. I was going through a lot in business, and was feeling like things were falling down on top of me, feeling very mediocre.
Right.
And at that point, I had been like reading stuff. I've always, if you were talking to me when I was in my 20s, the books I was reading, like How to Win Friends and Influence People, it wasn't like normal stuff that 20-year-olds read, you know. And so so I guess what happened was, when I was going through all that stuff, I had the awareness to be like, I need to try something different. And so I started really making a lot of changes. Like I stopped eating red meat just because I wanted to mix things up. I started doing boxing because it felt uncomfortable to me, and it was. I came across a podcast interview with Hal Elrod. Just happened, and maybe it was always there. I just wasn't really paying attention, but now I was. And I was like, I never didn't know that was a thing, like waking up early. I mean, I knew like, early bird gets the worm, whatever that phrase is, but I never knew people were like getting up and like meditating and journaling, and it just felt like, you know what, that feels like the right thing right now, and I'm going to try it. And here we are. So now I'm fast forward 5 years. Here we are talking about it.
There you go. So I find with myself even myself, I'm in the morning. Well, I don't have a specific set of things that I always do. For me, it's a general sort of mood or feeling I put myself in, if you will, where I'll get up. I don't jump out of bed and start. I'll get up and I'll sort of ease my way into, and through that process, I'm reflecting on sort of the day. I'm thinking about what I want to accomplish, and I find that, and maybe it's just me, that I write better in the mornings. Like first thing in the morning, I find it very easy to write. And so what I try to do as best as possible, if there's things that I need to write, I want to write, I'll save that for the morning, because that seems to be my best time of the day. Now, it could be different for other people who are all the same, but I think where I've landed on is identifying what works for me and what routines work for me. And so I think there's a bit of you got to know yourself a little bit too, to figure out what, so when you talk about morning routines, it can't say, well, I'm gonna do what Ryan does because it's exactly what I need. We all have our own little stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And morning routines are a very personalized experience. My podcast, I'm up to episode 112, but I've got like 120 recorded. And
listen,
thank you.
One podcast to the next, that's a big deal. I don't think people recognize the effort and energy and work that goes into it. Congrats, man.
And you know what's funny? You kind of know you're on the right path when it doesn't feel like work. When you were saying that, I was thinking about it. Yeah, like scheduling the guests, doing the interviews. I have a team that edits and does the podcast show notes page, but it's money and still some time involved. But I'm like, yeah, you're right. Thinking about it, that is a lot of work, but it doesn't feel like work. So that's kind of when you're in the right zone.
Yes.
But going back to your question, so I get to hear about a lot of people's morning routines, and so everyone's different. I've had some that are just like, whoa, Nelly, like these 3-hour marathons where they're plunging into little ice baths and, just things that you're not going to find me doing in the morning. And then I have one guest, her morning routine was 5 minutes. She would dance a little bit to music, she would breathe, and she would do some gratitude practice. So you got to find what works for you. I think your point about the writing, they say that we're the most creative in the morning. So I think that makes sense. Like your mind hasn't been triggered by anything yet of the day. You're just clear and ready to go. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. And I just kind of felt, again, my mind is the most clearest that time of day. The level of distractions haven't, they're not at its highest, if you will. You don't have people looking for you first thing in the morning right away.
Yes.
I find myself, I pray first thing in the morning, every morning. And sometimes, most mornings, I'll read some scripture or something and just kind of frame my mind, the way I think, and oftentimes look for ways to sort of carry that throughout my day, that sentiment, that feeling that I've left with. I find them very, I've got this a sense of peace, if you will. And so it's how do you stretch that out from just making it that morning routine moment to that morning routine day, if you will.
My answer to that, oddly, is I've got like my cards that I write on. You can actually do it. I'm just saying it. And so like I've got my priorities for today, so I'll check them off as I go throughout the day, which feels very good. Nice. And then I'll look at my intentions, like my intentions for love is to be warm, present, and encouraging. And so I look at those things throughout the day, and sometimes I have to remind myself as to what I said I'm going to be, because I'm doing work and my kids are asking me a question, and I'm like kind of listening, but not really. And I can see them looking at me, and I'm like, hey, look at them, turn and face them. So.
And what's really nice about that, working these things throughout your day, is if you do it the right way and work them in properly, they almost form who you are. Like they become how you operate, and that's really the goal, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why I write them down every day, every morning. So it's who I said I want to be, and so I have to keep on reminding myself.
Yeah. There is much to be said, and when you try to talk from a personal development standpoint, there's much to be said about being clear who you want to be, as you just said. Like, you want to be very clear on what it is you're trying to be, who you want to be, and how you get there. That's not always clear, though, Ryan. Sometimes that's a hazy picture. Sometimes, isn't it?
It is. I mean, like I write down for work, I write down confident, calm, and ambitious. And I've got some things happening right now that I have to remind myself, hey, be calm, and just work through it, And so it's just a good reminder. Actually, I got the intentions from one of my podcast guests. She said that was her morning routine, and I was like, I don't even know what that is, so I'm gonna look that up. And so that's where it all started. So I feel like Morning Upgrade, it's a passion project to provide impact and to help people, but it also teaches me things and keeps me accountable,
I can relate wholeheartedly. And when I think back to when I started this podcast, I'm gonna have to get your podcast origin story. I'll tell you mine. So when I started this podcast, it was in the height of the pandemic. And as I'd mentioned before, I'm the commissioner of a basketball league. The pandemic comes along, we got no basketball, and everything gets shut down. We're indoors, we can't do anything. We can't do things that we love and enjoy. And what I didn't realize in that moment is I was kind of going through a bit of a depression because I didn't have this thing that I loved. And I felt lethargic, and I was tired, and I wasn't really energetic about stuff. But I just didn't know, I didn't realize this thing was missing, oddly. That's why you're feeling the way you do. And when I made that realization, I wanted to do something that really showed this audacious spirit I oftentimes talk about. And so I landed on this thing of audacity, and how I got there was I started to sort of analyze my own life and looked at sort of my major wins and successes, and everything I had done was on the strength of demonstrating some form of audacity, and that became so for me it was a realization, hey, this thing is really important. How do we encourage it in other people? And that's what it started. And to your point, I've gotten, as much as it's been giving, I've got almost 150 episodes, and as much as I've given, I feel like I've gotten so much more in return, and you probably feel the same way.
Yeah, I look forward to doing the interviews. My story is very similar to yours. I started Morning Upgrade in April of 2020. That was literally when everything was, a month in, shutting down. I just had more clarity. I was at home like a caged animal, and just had more thought, more time to think. And I was like, I need to create something. I consider myself like a creator. I like to tinker. I've always had like little side projects happening and stuff like that. And so I was like, I should try to create something that teaches and impacts and whatever, wherever the journey takes me. And so I did not have intentions of doing the podcast. The podcast came around like August,
right? But
I was like, I need to have some sort of audio vehicle to get the message out, connect with people. I knew nothing about it. So I had to go and learn and how am I going to record, how am I going to distribute and stuff like that. So I taught all myself that, and then, just how am I going to find guests, all that stuff. And it's been an exciting journey. I mean, I'd like to talk about certain things like personal development, morning routines. I like to talk to about their business challenges, how they got through them, things that are like I like to ask people, even around town. I find myself asking these kind of questions. I'm probably like the wacky guy, but I just can't like turn myself off. I go into like podcast host at like a soccer game, like like I need to have a microphone with me.
I love it. I love it.
But yeah, it's so that's the origin story. It was really just a way to amplify the message from Morning Upgrade beyond just a blog and stuff like that. I wanted to have like this kind of back and forth.
So, but I guess I want to go back, and so like why the morning upgrade? Why focus on morning routines? Like it you could have done anything, right, Ryan? It could have been anything, but you wanted to focus on the mornings.
Well, because that's my pillar habit. And so like I want to wake up and invest in myself and start my day on my terms. And it wasn't always like that. Like you said during COVID, get into a funk. I got into a funk too, gained some weight. I stopped doing my morning routine, like literally not just like missing it here and there, like just not doing it.
Yeah.
And so it got me out of a funk. I started to get myself into a real funk. And you know what it is? I think I lost hope. I just felt like kind of just bored and just lost hope. And so I forced myself back into the routine, and having morning upgrade helped because now I'm writing about this stuff. I got to do it. And so that got me out of the funk. But to answer your question, it's my pillar habit. And so like if you look at the site, it's more than just morning routines.
Yeah.
But I do believe that it's the best habit to have is the morning routine.
Yeah.
And then it just spider webs out from there with everything else you can do for your personal growth.
Yeah. Yeah, you said something I absolutely love, and I want to zero back on doing things on your own terms. I think that is so key when you're looking at building the life you want for yourself.
Yeah.
It's got to be absolutely on your terms. And look, there are a lot of people out there that are doing some great things, and you certainly can learn from them. You can take from their successes. You can even take from their mishaps. But at the end of the day, it's your term. You're the final person. You're the final guy that decides, Ryan, what you want for yourself. I want to just talk about again, living life on your terms, because that is significant, I would say.
How my approach to it?
Yeah.
Well, it's gotten different with COVID because now we're all remote. And so my schedule is much more, I'm still working a lot, but I do live more life on my own terms. Like I'll go out to the diner and have lunch and bring my laptop with me and work. But my schedule is allowed me to be a lot more, live my life on my own terms from that standpoint. But then also I think it comes down to the intentionality. Like I know what's important to me. Like, for example, if I'm in the car, I'm listening to audiobooks, podcasts. So I'm intentional about the content I consume. I'm intentional about the books that I read. I'm intentional about the people that I surround myself with mostly. Like masterminds, I'm a big part of masterminds. I'm part of 2 right now. And so I think it's just about being intentional, like knowing what you want, knowing what's important to you, and then actually going for it and taking action in that direction. And then course correcting, because things happen and you have to sometimes course correct.
Sure. No, you're absolutely right. And in the world of entrepreneurship, I think it's a constant course correct, right? Because things can always, things will always happen. You just got to make those adjustments. The word pivot was really big at one time, right? You've got to make that pivot and change and, put yourself in a better situation for success. And so I want to sort of talk about sort of your entrepreneurial journey and sort of what kind of things you've had to sort of pivot from and how you overcame them.
Well, I think a pivot's coming soon. Like I'm wondering about what next year is going to look like. All you hear about is recession talk and stuff like that. And so then we have a marketing agency. And so, marketing is oftentimes one of the first things that's cut when companies are tightening their belts. And so, we actually have a meeting with my 2 brothers, my uncle next week or 2 weeks in Florida as we record this. And that's going to be one of the topics is like, okay, well, what will we do next year if things get bad? And we made it through COVID and stuff like that. So I'm confident we can make it through this if it comes. But, I've got the marketing agency, and then we have a roofing company. The marketing agency's been in the family for 56 years. And so there's been a lot of pivots there. Like we were just direct mail, and then we added digital marketing. So that was a pivot to try to have both sides. Getting through COVID, that was one ginormous pivot.
Yeah.
Trying to figure that out. And so, I think it's just, I've learned with challenges is just to keep pushing forward, like have a game plan and just keep pushing forward. And I try to keep my mental state as like stable as I can be, like the highs aren't too high, the lows aren't too low, and just like keep going. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's just the way I approach it.
Well, it works for you, and I think it's really important, right? That you found something that works for you, and it's going to be different for everyone. Again, we
Right.
can take from different sources, and we can benefit from the knowledge of others, and we can use them that as we see fit. But it's not going to be the exact same. And so, for you, it's choosing to sort of focus on your purpose and the why. And I think when we focus on the why, when stuff happens, sure they'll happen, but we still can recover because our why hasn't changed.
Yeah. And I think too, what the kind of the model that I've tried to adapt is to always try to, like, the concept of Kaizen, always try to improve, even when things are good, keep on trying to improve, and especially when things are bad, and just always looking for tweaks you can make to the services, to the team, to the products you offer. Just always looking for small little tweaks to improve.
Yes.
And I feel like that's been good for us as well. Just those 1% gains, that you don't really notice too much, but you do once they get to a certain level.
Right. And it's and those tweaks, right? Like, and I think those little things that you can do to improve upon yourself is, that's a great thing, right? Like, why not? When I was a kid, it's funny. I was just watching this video the other day. So when I was a kid, I was a big wrestling fan, right? Big wrestling fan.
WWF.
Yeah, for sure. And,
Okay.
and the Undertaker was one of those wrestlers who I
Mhm.
loved, right? I thought he was awesome. And so this video was doing this analysis of this character, because they're characters, I don't want to, I'm not trying to spoil anything, but wrestling is not real. I mean, I'm just letting you know, right?
Yeah.
But the point is they were talking about this Undertaker character and how it's changed over the years, but oftentimes it's just little tweaks. And whether he wore a different style jacket or spoke differently, but these little tweaks, and it allowed the character to evolve and grow and still be popular. And so I think, so what I took from that, again, I was going back to my childhood thing with the Undertaker, but what I took from that was, wow, it is possible to continue with constant evolution, so where we are isn't where we're meant to stay. We can constantly improve and evolve and grow on who we are as an individual.
Well, I love that you said that, because one thing I started doing this last year, and I'm sorry, my daughter just walked in. I started doing this last year. I'm going to do it this year coming up too. Is Q4? Okay. Start thinking about next year. Like, what am I going to do differently next year to make next year better than this year? Because if I do the same thing, I'm probably going to get the same results. Well, maybe it's fine, but I want to constantly try to get better. And so, like, to give you an example, like, so going back to 2021, when I was asking myself this question, I decided I was going to do a 10-month coaching program called Optimize. Just wrapped it up.
Yeah.
And then I was going to start doing Krav Maga, which is like a sort of like a martial arts thing that seemed kind of scary to me. And I found a place that was 10 minutes away. So, like, let's do this. I'm still doing it. The course just wrapped up. So now I'm thinking about next year. So what is next year going to look like? It's going to be different. Well, for Valentine, our marketing agency, we just invested in a whole new marketing campaign that's starting to roll out for next year to try to fuel the new business development.
Yes.
And it's a pretty big investment for us, And then I'm thinking, like, for me, I don't know, maybe one-on-one coaching, for the whole year. I've dabbled in that a little bit, but just dabbled, I haven't gone full head,
Right.
Head in, with whatever the phrase is. And so, I'm just like thinking about that model, like thinking about, like, okay, the new year is coming up. What are you going to do differently next year to make it better than this year? I think that's a good question to ask yourself, in my opinion.
It's a great question to ask yourself, because you are challenging your current position where you're at. But what it also does, it tells you that we're not done, right? Like, you're constantly saying, no, I'm not done. There's more to do. There's more to improve on. I can be better than I was yesterday. There's lots, and here's how, and here's how I'm going to do it. So I think that's a fantastic question to ask yourself, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Challenge yourself and see what you come up with, and then take action.
So I wonder if you can talk, and you sort of gave a couple examples. You said you're making a big investment in your business and different things that you had to do. I wonder if you could talk about that feeling that you have just before you make that big decision. Like, there's a moment there, right, where you're thinking, maybe there's uncertainty, maybe there's a little bit of fear, and I say it's a little moment, but it could be a longer, or it could be small, depending how, how long it is for you individually. But
Mhm.
what's happened for you in that moment, that moment before you make that decision?
So what I've tried to learn how to do is listen to my gut, and it gets easier the more experience you have. I'm 43, so I've been in business for 20 something years, and so like and especially as I go down this personal development path, I feel like my gut feeling, listening to my gut, has gotten better.
Yeah.
And so I honestly really, so to give you an example with the marketing campaign, um, we were hiring someone, and I know this is going to sound like we're going back to 1997, but we were hiring someone to do cold calls for us. We've got our lead sources through other things like trade shows and our website, like
Sure.
cold calling, not really. So let's go back to the late 90s and see what we can do.
That's
And
right.
so, but so I was looking at different
So you got the
companies.
yellow pages out, right? Is that it?
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So we were looking at different companies, and we were dead set on this one. And then I did another call with one other company just to do my due diligence, but kind of was going into it with like, eh. But then when I was done with the call, it wasn't like that their presentation was all that much better. And it was actually more money. But
Okay.
my gut was saying, this is it. This is it. I could feel it. And I might be I'm wrong. So far, it's proving out to being a good choice, but we're just getting started. But it was my gut. I could just feel it. Like I kept on thinking about that company, and it just felt like in my gut, it felt like the right decision. So I've tried to like that gut feeling, like try to really pay attention to it and then go with it. And that's what I was feeling right before the decision. There wasn't fear because we already committed to we're going to invest this much money and we're going to do it. It was more like, I guess the fear was around like, am I going to make the right choice?
Mm.
Not waste time and money. So that was there, of course. But my gut feeling for this company was so strong that I felt like I was making the right choice. So just went with it.
Yeah, and so for me, that's when we talk about on the podcast about the audacious is within, right? Oftentimes it's that the audacious is to be that person you're supposed to be, or live that life you're supposed to live, or take that step you're supposed to take. And so that's what I think we have to embrace. And sometimes what happens is we get to that right at that edge where we need to make that step, and we draw back because of whether it's fear or doubts or uncertainties or whatever. And I think in that moment, when you feel you experience those feelings and you feel them in your stomach, and I think that's a signal that you should move forward, right? Because
Yes.
the things that you do that are new and unknown, I think they're supposed to be a little bit scary. I think there's supposed to be a little bit of uncertainty about it because you've never done it before. So how else would you know, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a big lesson right there is you don't want to be super comfortable your whole life because then it's like you honestly probably haven't tried hard enough. I know it sounds like harsh, but I think that's the reality. And I try to teach like I had a teaching moment with one of my daughters. She's 12. I'm gonna do like a little dad brag here, okay?
There you
Dad
go.
brag coming. Here we go. She just made it onto New York Knicks City kids team. Like she'll be
Okay.
dancing at Madison Square Garden at the
Nice.
home games, for a certain portion of them. She
Nice.
tried when she was 9. She didn't get it. She came back when she was 12 and she nailed it. And so she's like some of the kids there know each other.
Yep.
And she's kind of like shy, kind of introverted like me. But then there's moments where she's not. So it's kind of like whatever that ambivert is that in the middle. But there's a lot of kids that know each other. And so she's coming back from the last couple of practices,
Yep.
kind of standing by herself, kind of lonely, just going there. No one's really talking to her. And so I'm like, she's afraid, I guess, to speak up and talk. And I was like, look, you got two choices. You're going to stand there alone and you're going to feel bad, or you can go up to someone and just put yourself out there and feel uncomfortable. So you're going to feel something one way or the other. You might as well put yourself out there and meet new friends. And so that was a lesson that I tried to pass along. I think she was listening. There was a look on her face like that she was picking up on what I was throwing down.
Yeah, she's processing. I got you. I've seen that look too. I know what it means. I know what it means. Well, and so far I think we can learn so many lessons from our kids. I'll tell you a quick story. My son, 8 years old. I remember taking him to it was a basketball house league program, right? And what they did at one point, they sort of lined up all the kids at the free throw line, and they can take shoot a free throw. And they had this sort of extension on the net where it actually brought the net down a little closer because they're little kids.
Yeah.
And I remember him taking that shot and he missed it, right? And right away, he ran to where I was. He ran to my legs crying, and he's grabbing on my leg crying because he missed the shot. And I'm very intentional about reminding him about that moment, because in that moment I said, you got another shot, go take another shot. And he did, and he missed that shot too, and he came running back to my leg. I'm not doing this no more. But and now, 8 or 9 years later, he's a very good player. He plays all the time. He's doing all kinds of great stuff. And I remind him about our starting point of anything. We're not great at it. We may not even be good at all. But because we missed a shot, or because we didn't have success, it doesn't mean that you stop. It doesn't mean that you give up and move on to something else. You stay at it. You be diligent about it, because by doing so, and you're giving yourself an opportunity to improve and get better, so you can hit those shots that you missed in the beginning. And I think so. So I make a point of reminding about that it's a process, and he understands that this is part of the process. And I'm going to suck in the beginning because that's just the way it is. I've never done it before, and I'm going to get gradually better. Yeah,
I think that's a lesson for everyone. I mean, you're not good at something in the beginning unless you're like LeBron James at basketball. But even then, I'm sure in his very beginning, he wasn't great. Sure. And so it's like, you can't. You have to give yourself enough time to practice. I mean, I see her with her dancing. She competitively dances too. And the things these 9, 12-year-olds do, it's like, I don't get it, how it's possible. It's because they practice and literally 30 hours a week, just going. And eventually here we are,
Yeah. No, you're right. And I think that's a great lesson. So good on her. Congratulations for achieving that goal. I mean, it's one thing. So it's one thing to go out and try something and fail at it, right? It's an entirely different thing to go back and try again, knowing that you've got that past failure under your belt, right? And so that says something about taking from that experience and using it as a motivation or to propel you forward, versus, oh, I didn't do it. I'm not, I suck. I'm not good. I'm gonna fail. Like you, because we have a choice, right? We could do one of the two, right? They're both at our disposal, and so to know that she used that as a motivation to elevate herself, that's a great thing.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, I was proud of her. I expected her to get it the second time, but I also expected her to get it the first time because she was a good dancer. And when she didn't, I was like, oh, surprised. But then she went back and nailed it. So I'm really proud of her.
Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Look, I think it's great that we've been able to sort of break down some of these when we start off with morning routines. But I think I want to touch on habits a little bit, because I mean, we're essentially morning routines, they're habits. We're forming these habits. I wonder if you can sort of touch on sort of the significance of why habits, or the significance of habits on our lives, and why they're important to us.
I mean, I think habits, like the habits make up your life. You think about, if you break out your day, we have certain things that we do, good or bad, that are helping or hurting us. And so a big part of our days are habits, like getting up, brushing your teeth, exercising, whatever the habits are, they make up your day. And so I'm trying to think what I try to like stack my habits.
Okay.
I'm trying to give you examples here. So the morning routine obviously is a habit.
Okay.
And then I've got exercise habits. Like I have to get 7,000 steps every day.
Okay.
Okay. I have to read every day. Every night I do gratitude practice with my daughters before they go to bed. But yeah, it's like you have to come up with a list of good habits, incorporate them into your day, and you rinse and repeat every day. And over time that builds up momentum. But it can work in reverse too. Like if you've got a habit of eating pizza every night, eventually you're going to gain weight. And so, I think our daily decisions determine the outcomes that we get. I think Darren Hardy talks about that a lot. Like, just look at the decisions you're making every day. Okay. The things you're doing every day, which is the habits, like you said, and he can predict like what your outcome will be. And so I think it's important.
Right. And there's much to be said about those habits that are just automatic, right? Because there are a lot of things that we do are just automatic. We don't think about it. They just happen. And, where the analysis comes in is these things that we're automatically doing, are they helping us or hindering us? And if they are helping us, great, find ways to keep doing it. If it's hindering us, we need to examine that and figure out why we're doing it and how we stop it.
Yeah, I know. For me, it's don't keep chips in the house, tortilla chips. That with salsa or cheese, I'm just like, can't resist. It's like it's terrible. But I even look for small tweaks. Like to my left, I'm in my home office here. I used to be in my kids' playroom, but in COVID, sorry kids, daddy's got to work. And so to my left is a little closet, and so I put a pull-up bar in the closet to make it super easy for me to go there, take a break, and do 5-6 pull-ups or whatever, and go back to work. And so that I've turned that into a habit, like just taking breaks and doing. But I had to make it really easy for myself. If I had to go downstairs and go into the garage, and it's not going to happen. I literally walk 5 feet to my left, and there it is.
Yeah. And so I think that's a really good point, making it easy as possible, right? And eliminate the excuses almost, right? And that way you're not thinking about it, you're just doing it.
Have you ever heard of a book or read a book called Atomic Habits?
Yes.
Atomic Habits.
I forget his name, but I subscribed to his blog, and
What's his name? I can't remember his name now. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
I subscribed to his blog. Oh, it's gonna kill me. Oh.
Yeah, you gotta look. I don't want to open my browser because I don't go down a rabbit hole. But he talks about like what you just said, like starting small, forming a habit.
James Clear.
Yes, there it is.
Go ahead.
He talks about starting small and then building from there.
Yes.
And then he also talks about, like, you've got a habit going, don't break it for more than 2 days in a row. Like one day, okay, but don't go 2 days, even if you have to do like a shorter abbreviated version of it. Like if you read 10 pages a day, but you can only read 1 page that day, fine. Just keep the habit going. And so I think those are very approachable ways to look at, forming habits.
Right. And then what happens, once you have those habits in place, they're easy to build on and they're easy to add to. And so if you've got like an end goal, so I remember talking to a gentleman once about he wanted to be a marathon runner, but he hated running. And so how he started was he made a point of putting on his running shoes every day. And so he started putting on his running shoes and he'd walk outside and come back in and take them off. And then it's like, you put on his running shoes the next day, walk outside, walk in the block, take it off. Right. And then, and you just keep adding that every day. And then he incorporated, jogging or actually you start with fast walking. Right. And so you start walking to fast walking to jogging to now regular running. But that wouldn't have happened if you didn't start that process of, putting on his shoes. And he broke it down that simply. It starts with putting on his shoes and then adding to. And so if you can find those habits that you can add to and build on and continually build on, then I think you're onto something. Yeah,
that too, and to add to that is tracking as well. Like for my 7,000 steps at least every day. Yesterday I did 10,000. Very proud of myself. I have an app on my phone called Google Fit that tracks my steps, and so and it tells me how many days. Like right now I'm at 6 out of 7 days. I got 7,000 steps. If I do 7,000 steps tomorrow because I missed it last Saturday, I'll be at 7 out of 7. So we're going for it. And so just tracking, like what you track improves, as everyone says. And it's true, because you don't want to have, crappy numbers, you want to,
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. And I got my Fitbit going here and I track my steps as well too. And I know that when you see that one day where you miss that number, you're like, it doesn't look good. It blew your 7-day average, right? So you want to keep going and get better. Now, again, these are the things that we talk about, right? What you can add to it, and technology makes it really easy for us to do more and to track it, like you said, because that's an important aspect of what we're trying to achieve, right? Like tracking it. So
tracking it and like looking for opportunities, like when I go for a walk, getting the sunlight, listening to Audible or podcasts. I'm learning something while I'm alone by myself, getting my steps in. There's ways to stack things that really starts to add up over time. Even the walking alone, no one can argue that it's not clear for you. Right. Then you think about the Audible, like if you're walking every day and listen to like an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, Audible for 30 days times 12, that's a lot of stuff you're putting into those ears,
Yeah, that's right. And you're doing so because of a habit, creating a habit. So there you go. I want you to give a shout out to I know we talk about your podcast, give a shout out to your podcast. Let our listeners know where you can check that out. What's the focus of it, and give people an idea of where we best can check you out there.
Yeah. Thanks, Audley. So it's morningupgrade.com. Nice and easy. The podcast is the Morning Upgrade Podcast with Ryan Cote. It's weekly. I put out an episode every Sunday. Haven't missed a Sunday since August of 2020. And so every Sunday episode goes out 9 a.m. and it's 15 to 20 minute conversations. I keep it on the shorter side, 15, 20 minutes. And I think I started that length because I was I was nervous about my interviewing skills because could I keep the conversation going for longer than 15, 20 minutes?
Right.
Now I know I can, but I'm kind of like, I like that sweet spot. So I stuck with it. But we talk about morning routines. That's like I definitely ask that question every single time. Habits, their meaning of life through their lens, business, like challenges, and kind of bounce around back and forth. But I hope everyone listening, they get one or two nuggets from it in a nice and easy to digest format.
Nice. That's awesome. I mean, sure, we'll encourage listeners to check it out. I'll check it out as well, and maybe there's something I can make my mornings better. But yeah, this is very cool. Ryan, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this. Appreciate the convo. It's been great, and I really think that focusing on our morning routines and morning habits, I think that like I said off the top, it is a great way of setting up the rest of our day. And giving us an opportunity to experience success. And the way you start, the way you start isn't always the way you finish, but I think the way you start helps you finish even stronger. So
yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, and for everyone listening, like if you want to start one, just start small, 15 minutes, like the Atomic Habits thing we talked about, 10, 15, even 10 minutes, just gratitude practice, maybe some quick journaling. Jumping jacks, whatever you want, like just 10, 15 minute routine, stick with it for a month. And I'm pretty confident you'll be hooked.
Very cool. Ryan, listen, I appreciate you for being here. Thank you for handling this, and keep up the great work, my friend.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me.
Back we are here on the podcast. I really want to send out my thanks and appreciation to Ryan for being here and stopping by and discussing the positive impact that having a morning routine can have on our lives. Be sure to check out his blog, The Morning Upgrade. Like he said, lots of good insights and good knowledge that he passes along. And again, I got to support my fellow podcaster. When I think back to my conversation with Ryan, he really left us with a lot of great nuggets and fantastic insights. But if there's just one thing that I take from my chat with him, it would be this. When we open up our eyes the first thing in the morning, our minds are flooded with a wide range of thoughts that are usually connected to tasks or things we need to do that require our attention. The insertion of morning routines provides a simplified way to start every day and gives our minds less to be consumed with when we first wake up, open up our eyes, which is really key, because oftentimes how we begin the day can have a tremendous impact on how the rest of the day will unfold. So having a great morning routine can make all the difference in being productive, achieving goals, feeling organized while beginning the day with confidence, peace, and a positive, audacious attitude. Hey, listen, if you haven't registered for email notifications of the podcast, please know that you can do so simply by heading over to bestaudaciouslife.com and entering your email address, and you'll be alerted every time we've got brand new content that comes out. We've sadly reached the end of another episode of the Audacious Living Podcast, and as always, I encourage you to support by the platform by heading over to your favorite listening podcast method, however you hear your podcast. Rate us, like us, send us 5 stars. Would so much be appreciated, and this is what helps the podcast grows. Again, to our amazing listeners, those lovers of audaciousness, we couldn't do this without you, and we also thank you for your tremendous support. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and as we roll into 2023, be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audacious Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, Be audacious.